And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 23 of the Druids Dozen. My name's John, known in certain circles as the Rock Druid, and I'm a bit of a DJ. Only on the radio at the moment during the COVID lockdowns, but I do a couple of radio shows. There's the Rock Druid show on astroradio.earth, and there's the Sunday Rock show on my local FM station, BCFM in 93.2 FM in Bristol, syndicated worldwide on the Rock Radio Network. And excuse me, I've got a bit of a winter cold coming on, a bit of a tickly throat. No, it's not COVID, don't worry. And basically these kind of vlogs are just me raiding my record collection and waving some of my albums in front of you, and just chatting about them for a bit to kind of share my love of music. So, without further ado, I shall grab some liquid to wet the whistle. I shall put the bins on. Yeah, I had them ready this week, and we shall pile straight in. With a bit of a classic. Yeah. This is Black Rose by Thin Lizzy, 1979. There's the front. There's the back. I know some people are interested in these kind of things, so just to show you, this is a Dean labelled one, as opposed on Vertigo rather than the Vertigo Spiral or the Vertigo Orange pressings. God, coughing like a bastard today. Anyway, Thin Lizzy's Black Rose, 1979. The only full album they did with Gary Moore on the guitar. Now, 1978, the end of the when they finished with the it was the Bad Reputation album, one before this. Scott got Ron Robson left, and they did recruit Midge Ure originally, the Ultravox guy. Well, he did a couple of tours with them, but by this point he was in his own band, the City Kids, and Ultravox was beginning to come together as well, so he didn't really stick around that long. So they brought in Gaza Moore for this album. And Gaza is, I've got to admit, I've got a love-hate relationship with Gary Moore. I love some of his Celtic rock stuff. I really like his heavy metal stuff. Really don't like him as a blues player. But I've explained that in the past when looking at Gary Moore solo albums. But fortunately on this album, old Gary Moore's in full-on Celtic rock mode. He's with the Lizzy boys. He's throwing out jigs and reels and all this kind of stuff, as well as doing some pretty sassy lead guitar work in his own right. Now, I've got to admit, I do find this album patchy. Maybe it's because it's the one that came after Bad Reputation, which is my all-time favourite Thin Lizzy album. I find this one is a bit, I don't know, it's good, and there's a couple of tracks on here which I'll come to in a minute I absolutely bleeping love, but overall doesn't quite ring my bell all the way through. I mean, the opening cut, Do Anything You Want to Do, great track. All this kind of, Brian Downey's kind of thumping drums and very, very tribal kind of vibe to it. It's okay, but, S&M, Phil Lynnett's kind of look at sort of like kinky sex. Not quite classic Lizzy. But on the other hand, you've got Waiting for Another Bite, which is a great rocker. One of Phil Lynnett's little kind of acoustic ballads, Sarah, which features some fantastic acoustic guitar from Gary Moore, as well as some, it's just a little acoustic piece of they put together. And then, of course, there's the epic closing cut, Russian dub, Black Rose, a rock legend, which is a kind of collection of sort of like Irish folk tunes kind of tagged together. Puts Mr. Moore and Scott Gorham as well into full-on Celtic rock kind of vibe, and God, they deliver. It's just a great performance overall on that particular track. So yeah, I know some people feel the same about this album. I know other people love it and it's their favourite. So I'm not going to condemn anyone for, you know, sort of loving it. I'm just saying it's not my favourite Lizzy album, although it's got its moments. Yeah. Oh, and also Jim, I really like that for Jim Fitzpatrick artwork on the cover. Great stuff. Yeah. Russian dub, the Black Rose, Thin Lizzy, a rock legend. Our first one today. Okay, next up we're having a bit of prog rock. There's a smattering of prog on this week's show, and we're having this. This is Empires Never Last by Galahad, 2016, I believe. So there's the front. There's the back. Whoops, the disc has fallen out. That's the, there's the disc. There's the inlay. Here would be the Barclay. And it's kind of, you know the score on these things. It's lyrics, it's artwork. Well, it's photographs and artwork and doctor photographs, etc. Oh, there's a picture of the band. Memories from an African Twin, and the lyrics go ba 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 ba. It goes on like that. Weird track. Anyway, there's the title track, and yeah, don't there's any actually album credits on here either. Anyway, Galahad. British prog rock, but with a distinctly metal slant. I wouldn't go as far as call them full-blown prog metal, but they're very much sort of like heavy prog. I suppose a bit like a slightly heavier Palace, maybe. Great band. They've been together since 1985. They came to sort of on that kind of prog rock revival, the so-called, I hate the term, neo-prog, sounds right up its own arse, but the neo-prog kind of sort of period, released a string of cassette albums and EPs. Then in the 90s began to kind of dabble in CD releasing. Still going strong, had an album came out beginning of this year, which I haven't got yet. I should have to rectify that at some point. But yeah, this is their 2016 album, Empires Never Last. It's a bit of a good groovy one. You've got 7 tracks: Defiance, Termination, I Could Be God, Sidewinder, the aforementioned Memories from an African Twin, which is primarily instrumental with a bit of bar 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 vocals over the top. The epic title cut, which is, in my opinion, one of Galahad's finest tracks, and This Could Be My Last. This is a moving, deeply powerful record. It's the performances are particularly brilliant. Stuart Nicholson, the vocalist, got a cracking voice on him. He's the only ever present that's been with them. But you know, you got Dean Baker, who I think's the guitarist, who's yeah, it's just a really, really good album. not much more I can say about this other than, you know, check out Galahad if you like a bit of prog. It's good. It's very, very good. Yeah, Galahad, Empires Never Last from 2016. Damn fine record. Okay, next up, going to go for the vinyl. And we have this one. Apologies for this, had an annoying label stuck across the front when I brought it in the record shop years ago, and I've never been able to clear that up. I think it was Revolver Records, somewhere in Newport. I got this over in Wales. But anyway, this is of course Chase the Dragon by Magnum, with the interesting Rodney Matthews album cover. Now, I met Rodney Matthews a few years ago, and we had a chat about various covers that he's done, and this Magnum album was originally going to be called The Spirit. So he did one of his famous paintings of Michael Moorcock's Tanalon, and then, you know, it was already to go out as under the name The Spirit, and then the record label, Jet Records, changed the title to Chase the Dragon, which, you know, is kind of way of taking heroin, which Magnum aren't into, and doesn't really kind of bear any lyrical resemblance to it. And apparently that's left, I've never met any members of Magnum, but apparently it's left members of Magnum's head scratching as well as to why it was done. But anyway, it's all been done. The album's now called Chase the Dragon, and it's great. This is probably my second favourite Magnum album after the obvious one, Storyteller's Night. Probably my second favourite Magnum album, although, you know, I just love Magnum. They're a great band. I've seen them live quite a few times. I have most of their albums. I've got a few of some of their later ones missing, but most of the albums are in the collection, and this is a bit of a corker. So there's the front, there's the back. So one of my lights is playing up here, so if you bear with me a second. There we go. There's the back. I say lights, there are a couple of torches I've got beamed at me just to kind of do a bit of shadow fill. This is very low tech, this vlog. All it is, like I said, there's nothing on the inside. It's front, it's back, and the back's got the lyrics on it. Now, there are some albums, you know, when you sort of like, you turn around and say there's not a duff track on it, you know, and it can be a bit of a kind of cliche to say it, but this is one that is very much true of. Where do you start on this album? Well, start with some of the songs. All the Lights Burn Out, We Play the Game, The Teacher, The Spirit, Soldier of the Line, Edge of the World, Walk the Straight Line, and the belting closing cut, The Sacred Hour. I can't pick a favourite track off this album. Soldier of the Line, it's one I give a lot of airplay to from time to time, but there again, you know, over the course of 2 or 3 years, most of the tracks of this album will appear on one of my radio shows at some point or other. It's one that I do like a lot. You know, Sacred Hour is one of my all-time favourite Magnum songs. Yeah, hard to pick. The performances in this are great. I mean, Magnum are always a band that are always at the top of their game. Special praise to Mark Steinway, one of the overlooked members of Magnum. Mark Steinway's keyboard player playing on here. But then you got Tony Clarkin's amazing guitaring, Bob Catley's spine singling vocals. Yeah, chuck in that Rodney Matthews cover, and maybe not quite perfection, but within a gnat's cock of it, I reckon. So, Magnum, Chase the Dragon. If you're not into Magnum, it's a good place to start. Yeah, when it came out, 1982, I meant to mention that. Came out in 1982, great album. Okay, next up, something a bit more obscure. Here we go, Sin City, 15 English pounds. This is a kind of metally, punky, hard rock, kind of biker type band. They're out of Evesham in the UK. I don't know what else they've done. I just got this one album I picked up when Alien stashed in, done a couple of gigs with them. Yeah, we played with them at the Area 8 biker gigs mainly. I can't remember if these guys are all actually bikers themselves. I know Alien stashed in aren't they? We're deemed a biker friendly by certain motorcycle clubs. Yeah, first of all we played at the Area 81 club in Bristol, and then we did the Bulldog Bash bike rally, and they were on the same day as us. They were banned just on us before us or just after us. But anyway, 15 English pounds, cracking band. One of these guys, Andy Crump, also plays with someone else quite famous, I can't remember. You got Tom Danby, the vocalist. Overall, just a damn good album. It's kind of oh yeah, yes, there's the disc. I'll show you this. There's the inner sleeve with some photographs of the boys. There's the cover. And there's the back. Yeah, I say good old biker, heavy rock. Got a slight punk tinge to it in places maybe. Just a fine album. If you're into bands like Dumpy's Rusty Nuts, then you know, maybe the Hamsters from Hell, those kind of outfits. These guys are right up your street. This album came out about 2010. I don't know what these guys are doing now because I've not seen a great deal of activity from them, so whether they're still together or not, I don't know. You might have to give them a Google and find out. But overall, you know, this album's a pretty good place to go if you can find a copy. Title cut, Sin City's a bit of a rocker. Other classics, Rock and Roll Heaven, The Human Sacrifice, Reap the Wind, Never Love Like This Again. Just great, good time rock and roll. Nothing more you can say. So yeah, it might take a bit of tracking down, but Sin City, 15 English pounds. Pretty good album, if you can find a copy. Like I said, these guys aren't exactly huge. Southwest of England, a bit of the Midlands, do a lot of biker rallies and that, or did if they've broken up, or still do if they're still going. But yeah, good band, I like. So a quick on take of liquid. And we shall have this. Here we go. This is Genesis Live from 1973, I think. Yeah, 73. And again, if you're interested, Charisma Pink, which gives it, well, that's its first pressing, but it's an early 70s pressing as opposed to the Charisma Blue stuff which came in the late 1970s. You can say it's an old battered album I've had for many years. And I know that some of you record collectors out there are going, oh, the condition is worthless, but like I'll collect, the record in here is fine, it plays perfectly. And I collect for the music rather than the rarity value, so you know, some of my sleeves may be a bit dog-eared, but hey, you know, like I said, I'm a DJ, I play for the music. This is the classic Genesis lineup. This is you know, Peter Gabriel, Rutherford, Steve Hackett, Phil Collins, and Tony, whatever his name is, keys player. I can't remember if my the brain fade. Not Tony K, that's the Yes bloke. But anyway, Tony Banks, that's the bloke. Yeah, the classic Genesis lineup, recorded between the Leicester Montsfort Hall and the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, February 1973. This is, there's the front, there's the back, including, you know, Peter Gabriel with his bat ears on. Phil Collins doing what he does best and shutting up and staying behind the drums rather than jumping out and ruining a great band. Yeah, a rather strangely bespectacled Steve Hackett there. No, that's what's his name in at the bass player. But anyway, Rutherford, that's right. Pretty good album. Set mainly lifted from the Foxtrot, Nursery Crimes and Trespass albums. Well, actually completely lifted from those 3 albums, because they were the 3 albums he had out at the time. Selling England by the Pound didn't come out until about 9 months after this. Damn fine performances. You know, I know live albums aren't everybody's cup of tea. Personally, I do like a good live album. You know, I've got this saying that I say on the radio shows that music is best served live. That's when I do gig guides and that, yeah. And believe me, you know, you can get spotless, perfect studio performances, which are fine, you know, brilliant. But, you know, I know that sometimes live performances may not be musically perfect and spot on, but it can capture a kind of, if you go to see bands live regularly, you know a good live album can sum up a live performance, you know, mwah, and kind of, you know, can, you know, whether you were at the gig or not, or saw that tour or not, it can take you there in your head as you listen. And like I said, obviously this isn't a complete live set. This has got a playing time of around about 35-40 minutes. It's been edited down a bit because I have seen online the set list for this tour, and there was a lot of stuff that they did play, like Supper's Ready, that's not on this album. But yeah, track listing, Watcher in the Skies, Get 'Em Out by Friday, a superb version of the Return of the Giant Hogweed, and then on the second side, the musical Box and the Knife. This is classic Genesis. This is Genesis when they were brilliant. My love affair with Genesis kind of tailed off rapidly after Peter Gabriel left. You know, as Phil Collins slowly turned them into a rather naff pop rock band. But you know, and yeah, that's me. If you like Phil Collins era Genesis, then more power to your elbow. Just that he gets on my tits. And you know, I've listened to albums like this, and then listened to albums like Abacab, and asked myself, what the hell went wrong? But anyway, cracking performances. Spines, the production is really good for a live album. Sort of maximum kudos to John Burns, who was Genesis' regular producer, and just a fine record. Yeah, good intro to Genesis, good intro to kind of, you know, great live album. If it's not in your collection, go get. And we're having another live album. Yeah, double live music today. Here we are. Robert Calvert and the Maximum Effect, live at the Carlisle Stars and Stripes, 3rd of November 1986. 2009 remaster. There we go. There's the front. There's the back. Well, just basic track list and a few pictures. If I pop this open, that's a double disc set. There are the discs. There's the inner gatefold with the or behind the disc scene, big picture of the relevant gig. Put these back, and then in here have a business card from, I've mentioned Crankshaft a couple of times on this blog in the past. There we have Crankshaft, who were basically the Maximum Effects, were Crankshaft under a different name. Robert Calvert used to change the name of his backing band for regular intervals. Most of the time they were Crankshaft, sometimes they were the Starfighters, sometimes they were Maximum Effects. At this particular gig they were Maximum Effects. Then on here you've got a piece of writing from Steve Pond and Dead Fred, the keyboard player and lead guitarist respectively, talking about the gig, touring with Robert Calvert. You know, how the guy was kind of like, you know, needed to be entertained because there was no one that worse than the bored Robert Calvert, so they used to play sort of silly games in the back of bands. I think all bands do that, you know. What's my job? A jobbity job. And then you have to kind of assume a character, and, you know, what's my job? Jobbity job, jobbity job, blankety blank, the old TV show, and then you have to sort of like pretend to act out or go into character and be a worker, and the rest of them have to guess what your job was. Or the other ones, they used to turn around and say, what's in your washing machine? Yeah, what's in my washing machine? Another silly game they made up. But anyway, it talks about the gig and just being on tour with Robert Calvert in not long before he died, because they say the guy passed away August 1988. And then on the other side, there's a review of the by John Hughes of the gig, actually of the tour review. Now, overall, this is it's a live album with a bonus cut. 24 songs it's the entire gig from that night. There's a lot of Robert Calvert's kind of you know, solo stuff, obviously, Evil Rock, Lord of the Hornets. There's a whole section where they're talking about where they're playing tracks from the recently released Test You Conceived album. Test You Conceived, Telekinesis, Online, etc. There's a smattering. There's, you know, it goes back to some of his earlier stuff, like Catch a Falling Starfighter. Where is it? Damnation. Aerospace Age Inferno. A lot of Hawkwind stuff on here, with obviously Calvert being the classic Hawkwind vocalist. They're all going to Accumulator, Days of the Underground, where are we? Robot, Spirit of the Age, Sci Power, The Flying Doctor. All great performances. Then that's the gig over. There's an extra track on the second disc. It's about 14.5 minutes of a track called Ode to the Sun, which is where this bit of paper comes in. It needs some explaining. Because this is a rock and roll story, you know, one of these classic ones. 1971, the first ever Glastonbury Festival. Robert Calvert is wandering around. I'm paraphrasing this, so I don't read it all out because it's over 2 pages here. Robert Calvert is wandering around with members of the Pink Fairies and various members of Hawkwind. He has this idea for a poem, a piece of music. It's going to be the best thing he's ever going to make, according to Calvert's later kind of recollections. He scribbled down some notes and started writing it. However, this is Glastonbury Festival in the early 80s. He came back covered in mud, and somewhere the great poem was gone. He spent a whole day searching in the mud for it, couldn't find it. While on tour with sort of crankshaft, you know, kind of in the 80s. He mentioned to Steve Pond and Dead Fred and the rest of the guys about this poem and how he could only remember various fragments of it. So they decided to try and work it up. And now this is where the really interesting thing comes in. There's a stage diagram there. I don't know if you can see it clearly. Basically, it was meant to be, it was a 24-hour long piece of music, meant to be performed by 3 bands, along with various other singers like Buddhist monks and Christian monks and other kind of world music instruments, with sound pulses beamed from a BBC radio transmitter, with 3 separate audiences, and with the audience being divided whether they were happy, angry, excited, dreamy or whatever, and the audience members would move between the 3 audiences. Calvert's ideal stage for himself leading this orchestra is Salisbury Hill in Wiltshire, the great Neolithic monument. And basically you'll get this 24-hour long concert work that the band started to piece together. When unfortunately Robert Calvert died, it was still only in bits. The idea being they'll try and get something together and do a one-off performance of this thing. So scrounging together tapes, samples, loops, crankshaft, maximum effects, whatever you want to call them, reassembled the piece of music, or cut it down to a 17.5-minute version of it, as a kind of what could have happened. I know Steve Pond still has kind of a kind of long-term back burner project to actually kind of see the project through to fruition at some point. But whether it'll ever happen or not, I don't know. It's a shame, because it would have been an amazing piece of performance to watch. But, you know, at least on here you have the edited version of Ode to the Sun. You know, a 17-minute version rather than the full 24-hour. But yeah, the genius that was Robert Calvert and the Maximum Effect live at the Carlisle Stars and Stripes. A great album. You might have to track it down. I don't know whether this is currently available. It was only a limited edition release at the time, but it's pretty damn good. Okay, moving on. Another CD. Here we go. Light Pupil Dilate, Snake Wine, their second and final album. This lot, they're kind of an interesting kind of cross-genre metal band out of Atlanta in Georgia. They claim to be influenced by everybody from Slayer and Sepultura to King Crimson to Converge to Fugazi and beyond. They like chucking bits of everything they were into a kind of interesting mix. They were an interesting band for it. Only a 3-piece. Weren't around for very long. They did 2 albums. I can't remember the name of the first one. This was their second album from 2008, Snake Wine. And within a couple of years of this album coming out, the band were no more. But, you know, I've got to admit, I've not heard the first album. I've been trying to track it down for a while, but without much success. But this album's a belter. Again, this is a promo cardboard sleeve job as opposed to the original. You know, as opposed to kind of proper releases. And there's just a disc that says Light Pupil Dilate, promo use only, Life Force Records. Very, very interesting blend of styles, and that you know often all end up in the same song, but they manage to, you know, and a lot of bands that kind of do this kind of cross-genre stuff, there's a danger it can become very messy. These guys don't. These guys keep it tight, together, and coherent. Highlights: Selfless, Boundary Dissolution, Twinkly. All pretty good stuff. The whole album's pretty good overall. Like I said, don't know if this is still available, but have a look for it, because if it is, and you like your kind of, it's kind of, the hardcore metal side's kind of probably more there than the proggy side, but you know, the proggy stuff is there as well. But if you like it kind of, you know, especially all you hardcore merchants or progcore merchants, it's a good album to check out. Yeah, 2008, Snake Wine, Light Pupil Dilate. Yep. We'll have this one next. Here we go. Status Quo, Never Too Late from 1981. There's the front. There is the back. And here's the inner sleeve. It's lyrics with a little tiny bit of album credit on the back there. Just a little bit of, basically says auditional musicians Andy Bown and Bernie Frost. And that's it really. Now, in my opinion, not that my opinion really counts for anything really, just the way I feel, this is the last classic Status Quo album. The two that came after this, 1982 was disappointing, Back to Back was absolutely bleeding terrible, and then after that it becomes the Rossi Parpet Band that I've got no real interest in, because it was they became a Quo by Numbers parody of themselves. But this is the last, say, truly great album. This is the last one to feature the classic Quo lineup of Francis Rossi, Rick Parpet, Alan Lancaster, John Coughlin. Andy Bown on keyboards, because for various reasons I've never really got my head around, although I've been playing with them for a good 5 or 6 years before here. He's only actually credited as an additional member and doesn't actually join the band officially till the 1982 album. But yeah, it's never really got my head around that. But this album was recorded back to back with the album before it, Just Suppose It. Recorded at the same time, effectively, all from the same sessions, and they decided to kind of split the tracks into two halves, Just Supposing and this one. This album does suffer a little bit for it, because it's almost like the best cuts went to Just Supposing, and with one or two exceptions, this was kind of the sweepings from the studio floor. Although some of those sweepings are quite good. I mean, okay, I'll get out the way the things I don't like first. You've got Something About You Baby I Like, a cover of the Tom Jones number. It was a single off the album. It's kind of it's standard Quo single radio fodder. Not really. It's fun, but it's not their best single. It's not their best cover version either. There's a better cover version on here on the end of side one, which is Chuck Berry's "Oh Carol," which is a far better cover than the Tom Jones number. But the Tom Jones one got the single release, probably because it's only 2.5 minutes long. Probably better for radio airplay than "Oh Carol" at 4.5 minutes is. And let's have a look. Yeah, there's a cut quit here called that's probably about it. You know, the rest of it is pretty strong material overall. As far as Quo album's concerned, you got the opening cut, Never Too Late, which is kind of the world is in a mess, it's finished more or less, it doesn't really matter, but it's never too late to change it, or worse to that effect. Yeah, it's kind of, you know, Quo lyrics are not really the most, don't always make the perfect sense, but you know, you got the cut on the second side. You got a cut called Mountain Lady, goes into Don't Stop Me Now, two Alan Lancaster pen tracks. Now, Alan Lancaster was always my favourite member of Quo as far as the songwriting and vocal is concerned. And those two tracks there show what Quo could have been. You know, there's even hints of, dare I say, Blue Oyster Cult floating around in some of Lancaster's writing from this period. You can see where him and Rossi and Parpet are beginning to pull in separate directions. Not exactly apparent on this album, but over the next two it becomes blatantly apparent. You know, as much as I kind of dislike the fact that they went their separate ways, which is the end of Quo as far as I was concerned. You know, I could see it happening. Riverside, another bit of a, but yeah, it's all boogie, it's all great. Enough is Enough, which is a real kind of headbanger. Yeah, pretty damn good. Like the cover. Not quite sure of the relevance of a hand grabbing a guided missile in space, but hey, yeah, like I said, the other thing you got to remember is around about this time, Quo were a lot, if you know what I mean, £5 notes. So, you know, a lot of their stuff may not be exactly coherent, but, you know, I still like it. And remember, that drugs are bad, okay. Now, yeah, overall, let's say the last hurrah of a great band, in my opinion. Never done anything this good since. They've done better in the past, but this was what was, you know, this is when the heart stopped beating, maybe. You know, it took another 2 albums for the corpse to fall over, and then it kind of been stinking ever since. Yeah, and that's just my opinion. If you like modern Quo, good luck to you. I don't. Yeah, Quo, take this quote, 1981, never too late. Interesting one. Okay, next up, talk about interesting. I've got to press on because we're getting a bit short of time here. Here we go. This is Lucid Distractions by Spires. This is an EP from 2012. Just a sort of 5-tracker. So there's the front. There's the back. If I open this up, and there's just a gatefold. Don't think there's anything behind here. No. Now Spires. Oh yeah. Just a very basic kind of info sheet there from the record company. Now, Spires are a band out of Manchester. Progressive metal. Very much in the sort of Opeth kind of vein of things. You know, and I've got to admit I'm a bit of an Opeth fan. And Spires are very much coming off that wicket. They're kind of, they can be brutally heavy at times, but on the other hand, they can have a touch that's feather-light and, you know, very acoustic. There's even got a cello player on here. There's, say, 5 tracks on this album, 3 of which, Under Bloodstained Skies, Perception and Inevitability, are pretty typical overall kind of Spiresy death, progressive death kind of cuts. Then you've got the 2 gems, in my opinion. First up, the title cut, Lucid Distractions. 3 parts. It starts nice and mellow, gets brutally heavy, and then mellows out at the end with some other kind of volume and tempo variations thrown in. An amazingly intelligently written cut. A classic. It is a classic piece of kind of progressive death metal. It is, yeah, storming. You know, I've just got to praise the members of the band. You got Paul Stadler on vocals, keyboards, and acoustic guitar. Paul Cuthbert on guitars. Alex Jolie on bass, and Chris Bernard on drums. Chuck in backing vocalists of Selena Cuthbert and Jacqueline Wilson. No, not the children's author, I don't think, playing cello. Although, you know, it's been interesting, she's got a cello in one hand and writing a Tracy Beaker book in the other. Could be interesting. But anyway, and then you got the final cut, which is an acoustic version of Spires of Ascension, which was their title cut off their debut album, came out about a year or two before this, which is an equally great album. So this album's very kind of probably more mellow than some of their other stuff, but you know, this is my favourite of their releases. This touches me in places that their other albums don't, although their other albums are very, very good. Sadly, the band are currently on long-term hiatus. They brought out an album about a year and a half ago, and then decided to kind of put the whole project on hold for a bit. Although they have said that they are not breaking up, so you know, I'm looking forward to future Spires releases, because everything I've heard by them has been absolutely brilliant. So please do yourself a favour, if you like your metal, if you like bands like Opeth, and even if you're into bands like King Crimson and some of the more proggy stuff, give them a check out. And like I said, you know, especially this album, which is their soft acoustic-y type one, check it out. It's just great. Spires, Lucid Distractions, 2012. Okay. Next up, bit of new over British heavy metal. Here we go, Vigilante by the fantastic Vardis. There's the front. There's the back, which is basically lyrics and the credits and that. No, nothing inside. 1986 this one came out. This was the final Vardis album before they decided to call it quits. Although Vardis, thank God, have reformed, because, you know, a world without Vardis is a world that's not worth living in. If you don't know, Vardis, band out of the Sheffield, Bradford area, South Yorkshire, had been formed way back in the early 1970s as Quo Vadis, a kind of blues covers band. Started writing their own material, and then, like a lot of these bands, when the new wave of British heavy metal come in, suddenly found themselves with a new audience and favour. I did a string of great albums. I think I've already talked about Quo Vadis on an earlier episode, their second album, their third album, one of the two. But anyway, a string of great albums, of which this was the final, fourth or fifth. It's definitely the final one. There's also some EPs and that floating around as well. Not the best of their albums. By this time, I think it's only Steve Zodiac that was the original member, and I brought in a keyboard player as well. I can't remember who. Gary Pearson rings a bell, the drummer, but I can't remember Terry Hornby, the bass player. But I know it's not the lineup that done some of their earlier albums. And as a result, it's an album that overall's a bit bitty. You got, yeah, but it's not without merit. Tracks like Don't Mess With The Best, because the best don't mess. Learn How to Shoot Straight. I want to be a guitar hero just for you. Predates that crappy PlayStation game by many. I say it's crappy because I can't play Guitar Hero. I play guitar, and when you're trying to play Guitar Hero and you're just following buttons to press, and it's a song that you know, you end up reaching for frets that aren't actually got buttons on, which makes for really kind of makes you shit, you know. So, you know, more power if you can play Guitar Hero, but playing real guitar's better. Yeah, I Must Be Mad, Radioactive, Running Beyond the Threshold of Pain. It's great. It's kind of, it got kind of almost like T-Rex Boogie to Vardis. Coming back to Quo again, it's a bit kind of blues rock. But it's heavy with it as well. It's kind of, you know, it's like, it's really, really listenable, danceable, fun band. Saw Vardis a few times back in the 80s. Always impressed me live. Always impressed me on vinyl. Even this, which I think is their weakest of their 4 studio albums from the 80s. still pretty damn good. Yeah, Vardis, Vigilante, 1986. Okay. Something a bit local to me. Here we go. Ye gods, les banditos avec les mullets. Yeah, there's the front. Broken jewel case, so I have to watch this. There's the back. A Ye God sticker. There's selected lyrics just on the gatefold. Now, this lot, they're a band out of Portishead. Yes, the same Portishead where the trip hop band came from. A 4-piece outfit, kind of comedy metal. Came across these were haven't been very active over recent years. They've done a few one-off sort of like one-off gigs that you hear about after the event, but they've not been extremely active on the local circuit for a while. It's a shame because these guys were fun with a capital F. They're called Ye Gods. They used to dress up as Greek gods on stage. Togas, laurel wreaths, glowing golden wings, etc. And they did their own original material, and they also did a load of covers. They used to do a fantastic kind of cheesy metal version of the Doctor Who theme song. My favourite number they used to do was Video Killed the Radio Star, the old Buggles number, a sort of speed metal version of that. Also on here you've got Ulysses 31, if you remember the old kids TV cartoon series version of that. But then their own material was pretty damn good as well. On here you've got there's Banditos Avec les Mullets, bandits with mullets kind of thing. Dawn Said, great track. My favourite one here, oh sorry, yes, Baron St. Jean 239 from Aldi, about the privilege of cheap wine. And then you've got my favourite cut, I love you, I fucks you, I buys you chits. A kind of love song for the working class. Overall, it's just a great album. So this one came out in 2005. They did a follow-up album, Full Metal Racket, came out a few years later. I'll say the band aren't together anymore. Chris Felder, the drummer, who went under the name Topher Ice Cry on this album, has now got a band called Little Villains, which was a band originally formed by Phil Taylor, the Motorhead drummer. So when Phil Taylor sadly died, Chris Felder, or Topher Ice Cry, got the job in that. And their new album arrived this very day, but I've not had a chance to give it a listen to yet, so I can't really give it much of a review, because I like to kind of live with an album and get to know it a bit before I speak to it. So that will probably be on next week's show. But yeah, it's a shame. I don't know whether you'll be able to get hold of this album. Like I said, the band have been on hiatus for a while, very rarely perform these days, although their Facebook page and that's still up, and you know, I think they're still technically together, but just not gigging at the moment. But hit their Facebook page up, see if you can contact them, have a listen to this album. It's cheesy, it's kind of quite amateurish, but it's so much fun, it's unreal. Yeah, Ye Gods, Les Banditos Avec les Mullets. Great album, considering. Leads us on to the final one. Going to finish up with another bit of new British heavy metal, but a bit of a classic. Saxon, power and the glory. Yeah. There we go. There's the front. There's the back. I'm not sure if this one's got an inner sleeve or not. No inner sleeve or anything on this. Yeah. What is there to say about this? 1983. Great Saxon album. One of the classics in my opinion. From their first album through to Crusader, my opinion, Saxon could do no wrong. Yeah, they kind of jumped the rails a bit for the next couple when they got signed to EMI and they were trying to kind of break the States, but how they wised up and sort of like came back to doing classic stuff in the 90s and are still going strong and bringing out some amazing music to this day. But yeah, this one here, 8 tracks of absolute metal goodness. Recorded in the States at Axis Sound Studios in Atlanta, produced by a guy called Jeff Glicksman. I can't remember what else he's produced, but I know he's a damn fine producer. Just a great album. Tracks on it, got the opening cut, Power and the Glory, Redline, Warrior, Nightmare. Nightmare being the single off it, Power and the Glory also being a single. This Town Rocks, Watching the Sky, The Miser's Touch, and The Epic Eagle Has Landed. Just a great Saxon album. All the band are on fine form. Bifford's vocals. God, it's got a great, kind of metal vocalist. You've got the kind of difference between you've got like Rob Alford with his kind of operatic kind of high pitched stuff. You've got Bruce Dickinson's Air Raid Siren, but no one sort of people should really mention Bifford's kind of shouty, yelly, kind of working class mob kind of voice from the crowd type vocal as well, which is just as relevant to Dickinson and Halford's for that kind of 80s metal. Yeah, just a great album. Power and the Glory, Saxon. If it's not in your collection and you like your metal, it should be. So that's this week's dozen. I want to say a big thanks to everyone that's listening. Again, I haven't said this for a couple of episodes, but I apologise I can't play your snippets. Facebook algorithm kind of doesn't really allow that for that kind of thing, sadly. Otherwise I won't get demonetised because I won't monetised in the first place, but I'll get copyright strikes. I can't even put my own band's tracks up without people claiming copyright and taking it down, so I'm not going to risk it. But anyway, if you give any of these bands a Google, you should be able to find snippets and that online. So I want to say a big thanks for listening. I'll be back next week with another dozen, and until next week's, look after yourselves. Oh yeah, radio show info's down there on YouTube, and it's over there on Facebook. And don't forget, comment, like and subscribe. Help me spread the word, because like I said, I'm not doing this for fame or fortune. I'm just doing this to share my love of music. So if you love the music, share it with other people that do, and let's get a musical conversation going, especially now we're going back into lockdown. So rock and roll, and I'll see you next week, peeps. Till then, bye.